Avatar: The Way of Water is one of my favorite films in recent years. Say what you will about the simplicity of these films, they are excellently executed regardless of perceived simplicity. But there's one scene that absolutely shines as a great example of strong characterization above all others. Let's set the stage. The film picks up over a decade after Jake, Sully, and Neytiri's victory against the human forces on Pandora. Now the Oloktan of the Metkayina clan, Jake lives peacefully with Neytiri and their children, sons Neteyam and Lowak, daughter Took, and adopted daughter Kiri, and a human boy named Spider, the abandoned son of Colonel Quaritch. However, this peace is shattered when the RDA returns to Pandora, aiming to recolonize it as a permanent human settlement. Jake launches a guerrilla resistance against them, leading to the resurrection of Colonel Quaritch in an avatar body to hunt him down. While Neteyam proves to be a disciplined warrior and the golden child who makes Jake proud, Lowak struggles with impulsiveness and feels like a disappointment in his father's eyes. Jake views Lowak as reckless and sees his actions as embarrassing, especially in contrast to the dutiful Neteyam. Lowak's frequent attempts to gain his father's approval only seem to backfire, isolating him further as Jake continues to put his trust in Neteyam. After an ambush nearly captures Jake's children, he decides to flee with the family to protect them, seeking refuge with the Oceanic Metkayina clan. The Metkayina, led by Tonowari and Ronal, reluctantly accept them, requiring the Sullys to adapt to a new way of life. While Neteyam excels, Lowak again finds himself struggling and is often disciplined by Jake, whose frustrations with him only deepen as he faces trouble with the Metkayina youth. In an attempt to escape his father's judgment, Lowak tried to befriend Tonowari and Ronal's son, Alnung, but he tricked Lowak into being stranded at sea. After surviving an attack from a sea beast, he befriends an outcast Tulkun named Payakan. Learning about loyalty and strength through this bond, Jake dismisses Lowak's connection with Payakan as another irresponsible act, viewing it as more evidence of Lowak's inability to follow rules. Meanwhile, Quaritch, using information from Spider, tracks the Sullys and captures Jake's children again, triggering a rescue mission. In the chaotic fight, Neteyam is fatally wounded while protecting his siblings. Neteyam's death devastates the family, especially Jake, who loses not only his eldest son, but the son he had always seen as his pride. But there's no time to mourn. His daughters were captured by Quaritch, and Spider knows where they're located. Neytiri and Jake infiltrate the ship, slaughtering all the RDA mercenaries in their path, until Kiri was held at knife point by Quaritch, giving Jake an ultimatum: surrender or he loses another kid. Jake was about to surrender until Neytiri gave a counter-ultimatum: Quaritch lets Kiri go, or she'll kill Spider. Ultimately he concedes, but promises to never stop hunting down the Sully family until they're all dead, to which Jake replies,
"Then let's get it done."
The two former humans duke it out, while the rest of the family fails to escape the ship and gets trapped inside. Jake managed to get the upper hand against Quaritch, but he was also trapped under the ship, until Lowak returned to save him, and Kiri to save Neytiri and Took, while Spider hesitated with saving his own father. Jake insists that Lowak should leave him and protect himself, but Lowak recited the Way of Water poem to Jake, giving him the courage to try to make the dive to escape. On their way out, Payakan helped them return to the surface, saving their lives. The family recollected and said goodbye to Neteyam, with Jake vowing to make a stand and fight for his family, not running away and hiding. This climactic scene, specifically the scene between Lowak and Jake, is what I think is the best scene in the film, a scene that hammers home the central theme, the character arcs thus far, and sets up the future of this franchise. For Jake, his view of Lowak as a lesser son reflects not just parental frustration, but a more personal conflict. Lowak embodies qualities that Jake once held himself, traits that he has since rejected or buried as the pressures of leadership and survival have taken over his identity. As Jake transforms into a hardened, militant figure in response to the RDA's return, he grows increasingly out of touch with the empathetic, adventurous spirit that originally drew him to Na'vi culture. In a sense, Lowak is a mirror Jake has long since avoided looking into, because doing so would force him to confront the vulnerability he has tried so hard to bury. Lowak's character is introduced as free-spirited and deeply empathetic, with a natural curiosity that often leads him into trouble. Though he idolizes his older brother Neteyam, he constantly struggles to live up to the high standards Jake sets. In Jake's eyes, Neteyam represents the ideal son, a disciplined, obedient warrior that can carry the family's legacy. Lowak, however, embodies characteristics Jake once valued but now perceives as weaknesses: empathy, curiosity, and a sense of adventure. These are traits that once defined Jake himself, back when he was a human soldier, embracing Pandora with open arms. Yet since the RDA's return, and the pressures of being a leader, Jake has developed a rigid, combat-focused approach, favoring the practical over the sentimental. As a result, he suppresses the part of himself that Lowak unknowingly represents. Jake's strict, almost militaristic view of family and survival can be seen as a coping mechanism, born from fear. As a father, he is terrified of losing the people he loves most. With the RDA's return threatening his family's future, he feels forced to adopt a commando-like persona, striving for complete control. His rigid focus on discipline and survival stems from his profound anxiety, and he subconsciously channels his fears through his expectations of his children, especially Neteyam, who he sees as a reliable extension of his own will. Meanwhile, Lowak's impulsiveness and tendency to follow his heart leaves Jake feeling exasperated, seeing these traits as potential liabilities that put the family at risk. This is all made even more tragically ironic, with Jake also having a brother that was senselessly murdered, and how he was supposed to fill the role designed for the Golden Child in the Avatar program, being seen as the lesser by everyone else. The clash between Jake and Lowak intensifies with each of Lowak's perceived mistakes, many of which result from Lowak's empathy-driven decisions. While Lowak befriends Payakan, an outcast Tulkun, he demonstrates his ability to see beyond societal expectations and judgments, connecting with an ostracized creature in a way that mirrors Jake's original kinship with the Na'vi. Jake interprets Lowak's bond with Payakan as a disregard for safety and duty, failing to see the wisdom in his son's compassion. In a way, Jake's reaction to Lowak mirrors his own past struggles with the military. The world Jake came from was rigid, unable to understand or value connection beyond the immediate mission. Ironically, Jake now mirrors that rigidity, so committed to his role as protector that he's lost touch with the qualities that once made him a hero. The climax of the film, when Quaritch's forces capture Jake's children, and Jake and Neytiri launch a desperate rescue mission, brings these tensions to a breaking point. In the chaotic fight, Lowak and Neteyam work together to free their siblings, displaying both bravery and love for each other. However, Neteyam is fatally wounded while helping Lowak escape, dying in his family's arms. This tragedy devastates Jake, shattering the image of the perfect son he relied on to carry his legacy. Neteyam's death forces Jake to confront the fact that his fixation on security and control could not ultimately protect his family. The loss of Neteyam, his golden child, underscores the fragility of Jake's rigid approach to fatherhood and forces him to reckon with his relationship with Lowak, who remains by his side. In these final moments, Jake begins to see Lowak in a new light. He realizes that Lowak's willingness to trust his heart and pursue what he believes is right, the very qualities Jake once saw as flaws, are in fact strengths that make him an incredible son and a courageous individual. Lowak's empathy and adventurous spirit are no longer threats to the family. They are qualities that enabled Lowak to form invaluable alliances like the one with Payakan, which ultimately played a critical role in the family's survival. Jake recognizes that, in viewing Lowak as lesser, he was rejecting the very parts of himself he felt he had to abandon to protect his family. Lowak's actions and the love he shows for his family in the face of danger reveal a path forward for Jake he had long dismissed. A path rooted not in fear, but in trust and connection. In this climactic revelation, Jake's militaristic persona begins to soften, and he reconnects with the empathetic spirit that first led him to Pandora and the Na'vi. His journey is ultimately about rediscovering balance, learning to protect his family without shutting himself off from the qualities that once made him an open-hearted and loving person. For Lowak, this moment represents the validation he has longed for, as Jake finally sees him not as the lesser son, but as an individual with unique gifts that are essential for the family's survival and their future. The climax, then, serves as the ultimate resolution for their strained relationship, with the loss of Neteyam breaking down the walls Jake built around his heart and bringing him back the values that he and Lowak share deep down. Through this powerful culmination, The Way of Water uses the climax to complete the character arcs for both Jake and Lowak, repairing their bond and reawakening Jake's understanding of what it truly means to lead his family. This sequence not only fulfills the character work laid out over the course of the film, but offers a moving reminder that strength is not found solely in control and discipline, but in the courage to embrace connection and vulnerability. That's it for today's video. If you liked it, give it a like and hit the subscribe button, join my Patreon page for early access to my videos, and join my Discord server. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you all have a great day.